So this Black Myth issue with the possible exclusivity, it's not over yet. I told y'all that there was no way with the evidence that we had based on what must have happened in terms of exclusivity, there was no way we could confirm that PlayStation actually did money hat the game. And I was given the best benefit of the doubt, even though I suspect that they would have. I do not put it past PlayStation. Their strategy is very aggressive, very heavy on money hatting. And so I left it as that. And at the same time, I did not take the rumor that talked about some memory leak because that was also a rumor. However, it seems like the ante has now been upped a little bit. Welcome to the Video Game Fight School channel. Let's pursue what we think, is going on here. Richard Ledbetter from Digital Foundry wrote a blog just yesterday where he actually did some comparison with the hardware to try to see what was going on with the Series S. Because the Series S and X are basically AMD devices. You can put together a few pieces of hardware to kind of figure out, okay, where your game's going to play when you actually put it on a Series S, or even put together some hardware and get a sense of where you see it play on the Series X or PS5. I've been talking about this stuff for a while, but it seems like, it's been falling on deaf ears. But here's something that's very interesting. He said this. He said, news journalists with good track records have corroborated the Sony exclusivity angle. And to be clear, we've heard some of the same ourselves from sources with good knowledge of the situation. And the fact that Microsoft itself heavily hinted at such a deal being in place adds extra weight. All PR statements have some degree of legal vetting before they're put out there. That said, audience reaction has been quite rightfully pointed out that if there is a PlayStation deal in place, Sony is keeping awfully quiet about it. Well, the truth is that exclusivity deals can take many shapes and forms and don't necessarily need to include marketing. So, Mr. Ledbetter over here is telling you that there's a possibility that this must have been done in a hush-hush way. And now, to the OG source that actually broke it, that really did attract a lot of attention to himself, and that's Paul Tassi. Microsoft confirms Black Myth WuKong delay not due to platform limitations. Comments on exclusivity. Before I even start reading any of this, you guys do understand that even though Game Science never said anything about the Series S being a limitation, the way their statement has basically been interpreted makes it seem like the Series S is the problem. So Xbox they find themselves in a situation where they actually have to defend their hardware, because from this whole experiment that Richard Ledbetter did, you're going to go ahead and see that using hardware that is just as fast as the Series S, or slow, however you want to put it, it's not the problem with this Black Myth WuKong game. I said to you guys, you can run this game on a Steam Deck. You can run this game on a Series S. Some people started talking about software. I'm like, goodness gracious. Even if I install Windows OS on the Steam Deck and I then install Steam and install WuKong, if it plays on the hardware, you are more than likely going to get it to play on a Series S. People are dragging all kinds of, what are y'all talking about? Guys, this is how you buy hardware to build your PC. You look at the minimum specs and you look at the recommended specs. Even though they may cite possible software, you can still go and try different builds of Linux or whatever the heck you want to use that will be compatible, and you will still gain similar performances. But back to the story. Paul Tassi writes, in a statement given to me by a Microsoft representative, the company has confirmed that the delay of Black Myth WuKong is not due to technical issues with Xbox platforms, and instead, similar to its original statement, points to outside platform/developer deals. Paul ain't happy with y'all. As we've said before, we're excited for the launch of Black Myth WuKong in an Xbox Series X and S, and are working with Game Science to bring the game to our platforms. We prefer not to comment on the deals made by our partners with any platform holders, but we can confirm that the delay is not due to Xbox platform limitations that have been raised to us. Xbox is saying it's not the Series S. And then in the science lab, which is hardware research and video game benchmarking, Richard Ledbetter says there's definitely a sense that Game Science had issues working on its first AAA console title. For starters, the PlayStation 5 has technical issues, basically the PS5 version. Some poor decisions in terms of presentation. A 30 FPS quality mode runs with an unlocked frame rate, adding needless judder. And in a medium balance mode that caps at 45, meaning that there's no PS5 compatible display in the world that will give smooth, consistent performance. And finally, the 60 FPS performance mode uses FSR's 3 frame generation to increase frame rate at the expense of responsiveness and easily noticeable artifacts. The chances are an Xbox Series X version would have turned out much the same, while Xbox Series S would be an altogether more challenging prospect. To get an idea of what the Series S could do, I broke out our Frankenstein PC, which features an actual Series X CPU combined with a PS5-like RX 6700 GPU. I told you that they got hold of some of those hardware that AMD was repurposing that were basically boards for some of these consoles. And they've been able to pair them up with some GPUs to try to figure out how the console would run. I would love to get my hands on something like that. I've been looking around and I can't find anything like that. If anybody knows a hookup, man, please holler at your boy. I will sell my 4080 to be able to have a hold of it. But the time is running out because this console generation is going out of style. So just to be able to do my benchmarks, it's one of those nerdy things. And ran the Windows version of Black Myth WuKong at match settings. The result, interestingly, the PC port runs around 6% slower when usually the RX 6700 runs 5% faster than the PS5. This gives us some ideas of the difference between the PS5 equivalent PC performance. Then I swapped the 6700 for the 5500 XT. This GPU has the same memory bandwidth as the Series S. Well, don't need it anymore. Sorry, don't worry. I could just go find me one of these. These are already now somewhat cheaper if you can get your hands on it. But 2 extra compute units. To get a matching 4 teraflop, clocks need to reduce to 1420 megahertz. My take on the PS5 version is that the game science really didn't want to come back too much on its visual settings. It's essentially running at high settings across the board, albeit with texture quality with surprisingly low, a low/medium hybrid. Take that mentality across to the 5500 XT and there are problems. Even at 1080p resolution, scaled from 720, Black Myth WuKong visual effects and vegetation density can challenge the PS5, and on the Series S equivalent hardware, even a stable 30 frames per second is challenging to achieve. I eventually got some level of stability, retaining the same resolution, but dropping quality settings down to medium. Again, targeting 30 FPS, and if the PC version does run a little slower than console equivalents, an extra boost could take it over the line. Based on what I saw at medium settings, the game looks okay, and obviously, it's still recognizably Black Myth WuKong, but it's clearly compromised. The alternative to dropping settings would be to lower resolution, but looking at early UE5 titles like Immortals of Aveum, I'm not sure that's a good idea for a game built on delivering intricate detail. So the game can play on basically hardware that's similar to the Series S. Ladies and gentlemen, I made y'all this video weeks ago. I literally showed you guys PlayStation 5 games, some PlayStation 4 games that was playing on hardware that is less powerful than the Series S. What games did I show you, you may ask? I'm glad you asked. I showed you guys Ratchet and Clank. That was a PS5 game that I showed you guys. Remember, I first showed you all Spider-Man, but some of you came back and said, well, that's a last-gen game. I don't told y'all. This whole last-gen, next-gen thing you're talking about, it doesn't mean jack squat. But Ratchet and Clank, the Miracle SSD game, can run on a GTX 960, a Ryzen 3 3100. The Xbox Series S has the equivalent of a 5500 XT with a lower memory bandwidth. And people are saying they need to do optimization on their game. They know that for sure. They tried to actually, voice it like they needed to do optimization. They didn't say anything wrong or bad towards Xbox. It's the the fanboys that just basically kind of cooked it up out of nowhere. They said the game is not optimized up to our standards. And somehow people were like, it's the Series S. They never said it's the Series S or X. They said it's us. But Xbox is saying, well, it's not our hardware. And Game Science never said it's their hardware. And Xbox is like, we're not going to comment on anybody's deals. So there is a deal. Or at least Xbox is now basically emphasizing that it's not us. We're working to get the game and we can't comment on any deals. Oh, so what deals? So right now we've eliminated the Series S from the equation. We have knowledge that PlayStation helped to, in a sense, facilitate the movement of the game and its ports to the PlayStation 5. For my investigative journalists, our hypothesis is now getting closer and closer to the money-hatting theory. I'm not concluding it just yet. I'm being nice. But many people have already concluded it in their minds because PlayStation doesn't give them any reason not to. So once again, PlayStation's strategy is just this week that it has to go money hat a game and put the developer in a precarious position where it now has lost trustworthiness. This has been the problem with these money hatting deals, is that somehow the third-party developer is left holding the bag at the end of the day. That's been the problem. In Square Enix's part, it's money. In Game Science's part, some of the credibility is now under question. In a sense, not because they intended to actually slander Microsoft or mislead the fans. They probably just intended to try to conceal the agreement that they probably signed. I don't know, man. I'm going to leave it to y'all. I'm going to pitch it to you in the comment section. Talk to me. Thanks for watching. Peace out.